From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
President Biden and Speaker Kevin McCarthy make a deal to raise the debt limit with concessions to House Republicans on federal spending and work requirements in aid programs. Welcome, I'm Kyle Peterson with the Wall Street Journal. We are joined today by my colleagues, columnist Kim Strassel and editorial board member Kate Batchelder-Odell. Let's start with two Republicans. First, Kevin McCarthy at a press conference on Sunday explaining his view of this deal.
Just to take you back to where we all started, back to February 1st, sat down with the president. I said, let's work together to be able to raise the debt ceiling, but curve the amount of spending, to let America be able to work again, cut red tape, get some work requirements to help people get back into work. I think this agreement frames all that from limit, save, grow. It doesn't get everything everybody wanted, but that's in divided government. That's where we end up. I think it's a very positive bill.
And here's a clip from Congressman Patrick McHenry talking about another aspect of this agreement.
We have consequential work requirements on important programs. We eliminate loopholes, and we bring in the value of work to these important programs. The meaning and value of work connected with fiscal responsibility, those are very important top lines for this negotiations. But it wouldn't have been possible without the firm commitment of House Republicans and us passing a plan.
Kim, can you start by giving us an overview of what is in this agreement?
Sure. And I'll just say up front, too, that I think this is a victory for McCarthy and his team. This was a negotiation over a debt limit that needed to be raised one way or another. It had to be done. And yet the GOP came together to a united front and forced Biden to sit down and negotiate something in return for raising that debt ceiling. So it isn't everything, but Republicans did get something solid in all four areas that they went into asking. So one of them was reductions in spending over the next 2 years. The non-defense discretionary spending will be capped at $704 billion for fiscal 2024. That's not as low as Republicans had wanted to go, but it's a big cut from where spending was projected to go. That was $757 billion. There will be a 1% increase for fiscal 2025, which is a significant departure from the 8, 9, 10% increases in non-defense discretionary spending we'd seen in recent years. In a second category, they got some modest work requirements, not what Republicans wanted. The big dollar savings were in Medicaid. These are instead for the SNAP program and the temporary assistance for needy families. Again, quite modest, but I think it was notable that Democrats had claimed these programs were inviolable, that you could not impose any work requirements. So they did get something. They are clawing back COVID funds. They are clawing back some IRS funds. And then finally, there's a section of the bill that deals with permitting reform for federal projects. Notably, this is a first statutory reforms to the National Environmental Policy Act since 1982. We could go through what that is. I think that it's a good step to trying to cut down on some of the excessive periods of time it takes to get any infrastructure done. There's still a lot more that needs to be done, but that's probably going to have to wait for Congress. So they went in. They set out a very high bar of demands in terms of what they'd put in their Limit, Save, Grow Act. Didn't get it all, but they accomplished some real priorities. And I think they're going to end up getting a significant amount of support for Republicans and even some Democrats to get this across the line.
To underline some of those overall non-defense discretionary figures, House Republicans had wanted a return to fiscal 2022 levels for fiscal 2024. So that would have been $689 billion. The projected 2024 was $757 billion, and this agreement is for $704. So meeting in the middle, that's what happens when you have divided government, a Republican House, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic president. And then there's a cap of the increase for fiscal 2025 of 1%. And remember, we are in an environment of right now inflation at 5 or 6%, and who knows what that will be in 2025. But I can't believe it will be under 1%. And so that is a decrease, a shrinking of at least this portion of the federal government relative to the overall economy and the overall spending power of that money. Kate, can you give us a sense of what's your view of how significant these work requirements are? Again, the Republicans wanted more than are in this actual bill, but there are some in this bill, which strikes me as significant.
Kylie, yes, it is significant and short. And I think stepping back for a quick second, to Kim's point, when you look back over some of the recent showdowns over debt ceiling fights and other runs at spending reforms that Republicans have made, this is a huge improvement in that the party singled out some specific asks, stuck to them, and extracted some concessions in exchange for raising the debt ceiling and looks like poised to pass it. I mean, this is a huge improvement from where the GOP has been in recent years, where they want to get everything and then end up with nothing. On the narrow part of work requirements, the Republicans did not get anything on Medicaid, but I think that was always understood to be a really heavy lift as a health entitlement program. And even conservatives are somewhat split on how to enforce Medicaid work requirements, given people go to the emergency room and need care and so on. So that was always a larger ideological ask that was probably off the table here. What's remarkable is that they got most of what else that they asked for. On food stamps, we have an increase in the age band for able-bodied adults who don't have children at home. They now, up to age 54, will need to work part-time if they want to have benefits for longer than 3 months. So that is a modest expansion. It's reasonable. Now, even since 1996, there's been an improvement in the amount of number of jobs you can do up until age 54 that are not physically demanding, for instance. So that is an improvement. They also, Kyle, did a number of things in this bill just to crack down on ways that states have tried to evade these work requirements that exist in the statute. If states were half as creative about getting people back into work as they are into trying to get out of these work requirements, this bill probably wouldn't be necessary. But just a quick example of those, in cash assistance, temporary assistance for needy families, a few states are doing this thing where they are supposed to engage half of their families in work. And to satisfy that requirement, they would find people who are on other federal benefits, maybe they're getting food stamps, and who are already working, and then mail them a $10 to $20 check and then say, oh, you're on this cash assistance program now and you're working, so we'll count you towards our requirement. I mean, these are the kind of basic schemes that House Republicans are trying to end. And that's why I think it's so impressive that Democrats are acting like even this is an anathema. But this is real progress on getting back towards the foundation of these benefit programs that pair work with receiving benefits. So I think it's a substantial improvement. And the farm bill is coming in the fall, and Republicans can take it back up then and try to get more of their priorities.
There's also an incentive in the bill for Congress to do its job of passing appropriations legislation in its normal order. Kim, what's the importance of that, and how likely is it, given how many people in Congress love the old omnibus where they can stuff everything in at the end of the year?
And that's the context for this enforcement mechanism, is that you may remember when Republicans took over the House and they were coming up with their rules and electing a speaker. This was a big topic of conversation, regular order. Under budget law, Congress is supposed to, the House is supposed to, and the Senate is separately supposed to pass 12 separate appropriations bills. The committees for those two chambers then come into conference and negotiate an agreement. Those bills go to the president's desk. That has not happened in ages. I think that over the past 25 years, it's only happened on maybe 3 occasions. I'd have to check that, but it's very low. They almost always fail to do it. And instead, what you get is Congress not getting through its work by the fiscal deadline in September, passing a continuing resolution to keep spending where it is, passing another one, finally getting to the end of the year and stuffing all of its spending into these 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 page bills with policy stuffed in as well, all kinds of things. Nobody reads it. They all vote for it and everyone goes home. And that has been a cause of an enormous amount of spending, but also poor policy in that it's not really debated and considered, but just stuffed in a back room and over the line. So this is designed to fix that. And the penalty here is that if either the House or the Senate has not completed all 12 of those bills by the end of the calendar year. They are giving people a little bit more time instead of the regular September deadline. Then all spending in discretionary accounts takes a 1% cut off of the prior year's levels. So that is meant to be a cudgel. It does apply to both domestic discretionary spending and defense spending, which is a little concerning to me, only because I would not like to see the military hampered if, for some reason, Senate Democrats don't get their work done. But that was the compromise that was in there, in that the White House didn't want House Republicans to take domestic discretionary hostage, and the Republicans didn't want the White House and Senate Democrats to take the military hostage. So they kind of have a little tool on each side. But this could be, if this works, and I think that it will be a pretty good prod to get it done. This could be the first time in a very long time we'll have a regular budget order.